Hi guys, hope you're all doing very well and are all set on your master's application journey. So in the previous video, we discussed an overview of all the application materials and tips for the same. And now going forward, we are going to delve deeper into each of the aspects which go into making a perfect application for your master's. So in today's video, we are going to start with discussing the design portfolio as it has a lot of weightage when you're applying for design programs abroad and in India. So what were the tips that helped me structure a good portfolio? I'm going to share those with you today. So let's jump right in. So to begin with, it is very important to define the format of the portfolio that you are going to follow, whether it will be a PDF or a web-based link. Now, this totally depends on the universities that you are applying to and what kind of requirements do they have. So if most of them have like a PDF requirement and some of them have given an option between a web-based one and a PDF, then I would say focus on only one kind of a portfolio which is acceptable to majority of your applied universities. But if you have to make both of them, then I would highly recommend that you refrain from just taking JPEGs out of your PDF and putting them on a web-based link, because how one reads a web page is very different from how you go about navigating a PDF slider. So if it's necessary, then go in for making both of them. However, if possible, try and focus all your attention on one format of the portfolio. Now for the PDF, it is important to start with defining the page size that you require. So if any of the university has mentioned a specific page size, you can stick to that, and if not, I would recommend having a 16:9 ratio for all your slides. Now this covers all screen sizes end to end and gives you more canvas space to play around with. Then it is important not to overclutter each slide of the PDF, because we cannot expect a viewer to zoom into sections for them to make it readable. So your page should be readable on the zero zoom level, and everything should have enough clarity. Also, if you have multiple sections within the same page, do make sure that there is a clear reading pattern for the viewer, because you don't want them to read your page in any way that they like, because it is going to break your story flow that you are presenting to them. So this can be done very simply by either adding numbers to the sections of the page or having a clear visual hierarchy only through the layout of the page. So make sure that the reading pattern is well defined. Also, I would highly recommend not having a double leaflet PDF, the one which opens like a book, because again that shrinks your text sizes, your graphic sizes, and we do not know on which screen size or which laptop or projector are they viewing your portfolio. So we want maximum clarity and legibility. So stick to a 16:9 size if possible and make the reading pattern very clear. So for a web-based portfolio, I feel that these days there are a number of website builders which you can easily use, and it will spare you a lot of time for designing your case studies and your portfolio rather than spending time on coding it. Unless you're a very good coder and that's one skill set that you want to highlight, you can go in for a lot of website builders which have readily available templates, and then you can customize it as per your liking. Then I would say do not cover a web based portfolio like a end to end width, and stick to the width, column width, which is visible and clear on every screen size, because we again do not know what screen size are they going to view or your portfolio on. Then because PDFs already have like a predefined limit to them, like you have to keep them under a certain number of MBs when you are uploading them. But web-based portfolios don't have any file size per se. However, I feel that using very heavy images or very heavy videos is a problem sometimes, because it takes time to load the page, And if we do not want them to see blurry or pixelated images on their screen, I would say use high quality images and videos, but keep them under a certain file size so that the loading is not an issue. Then in a web-based portfolio, it is easier to have a clear defined reading flow because there's no limit to the scrolling of a web page. So you can have your material a bit more spaced out and bit more legible. So keep the reading flow very simple. However, you can definitely use your creative skills in laying out your web page. So, when you're planning to begin structuring the portfolio and starting to plan how you are going to place your projects, it's important to start with understanding what are the projects that you're going to put forward in your portfolio. So, I would suggest having anywhere between 4 to a maximum of 6 projects. Otherwise, it's too much load on the reviewer. So, anywhere between 4 to 6 projects, shortlist those and identify the best work that you've done, and these many projects are enough. Then identify how many number of pages are you allowed to show in your portfolio, and if a university is saying 18 pages and another is saying 20, I would say go in for the lesser number of pages and stick to those number of pages for all the versions of the portfolio. Otherwise, unnecessarily you'll have to make different cuts of the same projects that you've worked on. So go in for the lesser number of pages that are specified. Then identify how many number of pages do you want to give to each of the projects. Now, if there's a project which you had done in a greater depth, be it your thesis or your research work, then you might want to give it more number of pages, and others which are more visual heavy and stuff like that might require lesser number of pages. So plan that next. Also, the number of pages given to each project also depend a lot on the story that you are building within that project. So like I mentioned in my previous video, it should have an intro, it should have a body of work, your iterations, and a conclusion. So see what best would fit each project, and then plan out the number of pages accordingly. Then you must also identify from your previous sheets and previous decks of these projects that what are the illustrations and graphics that you already have, which you can take and put away directly in your portfolio, and what are the illustrations that you might want to rework on or make from scratch. So yes, there is a possibility that you might want to make some new stuff entirely for this application portfolio, because either the visual quality of the existing material doesn't match, or there are some elements which you could not finish up then. So it's totally okay to come up with new stuff which you can add to your application portfolio. So, we intend to spend a lot of time in designing our projects and our case studies for the portfolio, but we forget the first and the last page, and they become like an afterthought after we have completed the entire portfolio. And we forget that those are actually the first and the last impression that is going to be there on the viewer. So, it's very important to keep them in mind when you're designing the portfolio. So for the cover page, what I did was that I used it to introduce myself as a designer and give them a glimpse of what they're going to see in the projects ahead. So I mentioned keywords like architecture, design, and research because that was the kind of projects that I was going to show them ahead, and also used graphics and images that define my design style so that it sets the pace for the entire portfolio. Then in the last page, I used it as like a conclusion to all my projects. So that was where I mentioned the learnings that were there through all the academic and professional work that I have done till now, and a few things of what I'm expecting to learn ahead. So it was not very text heavy. However, I mentioned just glimpses of the learnings throughout my work, and also links to my social media handles. So instead of just having a thank you at the end, it gives a little more information and utilizes the page a bit well. So we know that design is a forever ongoing process, and hence no project is at any time complete. So it's a good practice to end your projects and like conclude them by talking about the way forward. So if at all you were given more time and resources, how would you intend to take the research or the design project ahead of what it is shown in the portfolio? So it's a good way to conclude your learnings and show that you are also thinking about how it could make an impact in the future. If you're showing a professional project, it's very good to show the impact that it has created on ground in terms of numbers or in terms of qualitative responses that you could gather from the feedback from the users, etc. So having a proper conclusion to the project and a way forward is a good way to end each project in the portfolio. So now when you're making a portfolio for your master's application, sometimes there's a doubt that whether or not we should include projects which are not directly related to the master's or not. Now this could range from your business projects, marketing projects, some other, if you have some other background, those projects related to that, so on and so forth. However, in my opinion, it is always beneficial to show a range of projects because it shows that you possess different kinds of skill sets. However, you might refrain from getting into a lot of technicalities. For instance, because my background is in architecture and I had a lot of architecture projects to show in my portfolio, what I did was that I stuck to diagrams, illustrations, and showed my research insights, etc., and did not show construction drawings because they might become too technical for a design portfolio and it need not convey the story that I am trying to build. So stick to simpler diagrams or whatever ways of communication you have to communicate your ideas and your research insights, etc. Refrain from going into a lot of technicalities if it is not very related, but definitely show a range of projects. Now, having proper captions and sourcing our illustrations and graphical images in our portfolio is something that we often forget. However, it's the best practice to explain what the illustration or the visual that you've put across is showing, because the viewer has no idea that what are you trying to intend or what are you trying to put across when you're putting that visual without any text or without any caption against it. So it's important that, for example, if you're using like an architectural render, then mention that what is it trying to show, where and how is the view taken from, and also it's a best practice to source all your visuals because it shows that you give importance to giving due credit to either your fellow groupmates or external sources from which you've taken the visuals from. So do not forget to put necessary captions and sources wherever they are important. So now in portfolios, using text can be very tricky because you don't want a lot of text on your pages. However, you do want it to explain the important parts of your thought process. So what I did was, in my portfolio, whenever I felt that there is a lot of text that has to go into a page, I tried converting it into infographics. Now, what happens is in some research projects and other projects also, there are certain things which can be expressed only via words. So instead of plonking large long paragraphs on your sheets of paper, try and converting them into infographics or diagrams which look visually appealing and structure your thought. So you can try making them on Lucid, on FigJam directly, and there are multiple other ways where you can find some templates or references to make these infographics. So these will look visually pleasing as well as they will express what your thoughts are in the form of words. So guys, with that we come to the end of this video where I shared some generic tips for making your design master's application portfolio. In the next video, which is going to be a continuation of this one, I'm going to walk you through a few of my projects which I included in my portfolio and how I translated these tips to my projects. Now, in no way are they perfect or are they the only way of presenting your projects, but it's just a way of giving you an idea of how you can actually utilize these tips to present your work better. And yeah, please stay tuned for that and include these tips to your work. Thank you.